Today is joining me Katie Campbell. Katie is the founder of Nature Bee. This company started as a small business out of her parents' basement and has now transformed into a full scale production with an incredible staff. Katie was overwhelmed by the year over year production of wasteful single use plastic and wanted to take a stand. With Nature Bee, Katie is contributing to making an impact on plastic pollution and our community by providing a simple, natural, and beautiful alternative to plastic wrap while encouraging others to reduce their consumption of single use plastics. Katie, thank you so much for being here with me today. And if I may, I'm going to start with the first question of this interview.
Great.
For this first question, I would like to understand your perspective of the concept of sustainability, and I will quote the World Commission on Environment and Development in their own definition. And I quote: sustainability is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. But again, from your own perspective, Katie, what does sustainability mean to you in your work and life?
Yeah, great question. I think sustainability goes beyond just like, everyone has this idea and concept that sustainability is like plastic reduction, but it goes beyond just that. And it's an integration into your whole life and into the future of our world. And like, what can we do to keep the planet protected, the people protected, and make sure that we're, living our lives sustainably, and that involves just different incorporations of daily habits and things like that. Because our whole motto at Nature Bee is small changes have a big impact. And I believe that that's what the future of sustainability is.
Oh, thank you. And now that you mentioned daily habits, how do you integrate these sustainability habits in your daily life or in your organization?
Yeah, before like starting Nature Bee and things like that, a few things that I always do are like, reusable bags. So when you're going to the grocery store, everyone has a reusable bag, a reusable water bottle instead of a single-use water bottle, containers instead of Ziploc baggies, and then of course now with Nature Bee, it's like using beeswax wraps instead of plastic wrap, using Swedish dishcloths instead of paper towel, and then biodegradable cleaning tablets instead of like buying a new bottle every single time. Those are like a few actionable items that I do. And then other things is just like turning the lights off when you're not using them. And like those are all things that people do subconsciously, but they don't realize that they do have an impact. So different things like that.
Oh, they're really easy to do, right? I mean, how you bring to daily basis, you're going to impact greater later, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes, even though sounds easy to make, sometimes it's hard and you need motivation to keep going, right? Because I mean, to be honest, maybe people saying things that is not easy or it's easier to complain, right? So I want to ask to you, do you have in mind any experience that you can recall is as an example of how you keep motivating to keep working towards sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the motivation is like I literally work in a company that's all about sustainability. But to say that if I'm an individual at home and not, with Nature Bee, I think it's like setting very achievable goals. Like for me, it was like replace all of my plastic containers and Ziploc bags with like glass containers and different things like that. And those just become part of the daily routine and they're not actually too daunting or they didn't cost me a lot, different things like that. Other ways I like to stay motivated is like education. So following people on social media or listening to blogs and podcasts about like different changes that they've done and realizing like the positive impact that they do have on the environment, on the community, and different things like that. I think those are some of the ways that I like personally stay motivated and motivate other individuals in my family and different things like that. Really good conversations is like really helpful and always reminding myself like again small change big impact, so what can I do that's like not gonna create a huge upset in my routine and things like that. Like, what could I do that's really simple but does have an impact? So it's, those little things that do really add up. And I think on an individual level, that's how I stay motivated. Like, I'm not bogged down or anything.
Oh, that's great. I mean, don't overwhelm, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
love what you said about set achievable goals.
Yes.
If you break it down, it's going to make it easier and not overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And in your opinion, do you think or you consider are the biggest sustainability challenges or obstacles we
Yeah.
face?
100% it's like the knowledge about sustainable practices. So like people are, always like, "Oh, I have to be completely zero waste in order to make any impact." When the reality is that that's not what you have to do and that's going to become so overwhelming that you likely won't stay with those practices. So it's like for me, it's that education and awareness about what is sustainability and what changes I have, do they have an impact? The second thing is like cost. Everyone's like, eco-friendly products are more expensive, like blah, blah, blah. But you can find so many eco-friendly products that are way less. Like our cleaning tablets, for example, they're way more sustainable. You're not transporting water all over the world. You're just transporting a cleaning tablet. Those cost half the price of a regular bottle. So I think it's like that knowledge about cost as well. Those are kind of two things, education and then like the incentives, costing, that kind of stuff. Um, I would also say convenience. People are like, single use products are so much more convenient. So, like, I'm not going to go and do this other thing, but it's just like incorporating it into your daily lives that is going to have the biggest impact.
And for example, now that you mentioned the idea of single use, actually that's its purpose, right? To be convenient,
Yeah.
to just use it and you don't need it anymore. Okay, go into the trash can.
Yeah.
But taking this in as an example, how do you suggest are the best way to overcome this challenge? I mean, to decide to stop using single-use plastic.
Yeah, I mean, educate yourself, and increase awareness. I think, like, as a brand, our goal is to like have campaigns and education and knowledge around all of these changes and impacts. But then on an individual level, it's like, start doing research on your own, figure out the impact, figure out if that's an achievable goal that you can, um, like become, follow somebody, ask questions, like different things like that. You can incentivize yourself. Like, hey, if I don't use any single use plastic water bottles this week, I'll go and buy myself a reusable water bottle or different things like that. You could join like beach cleanups or community like recycling and pro sustainability programs or different things like that. Um, I think it's really just education and like finding a way to educate in a proper way that's not so overwhelming. And that's kind of like the big thing.
In certain way, I go back to the your answer related to education because as you just said, if you go outside and go pick garbage from the litter from the streets, you're going to see, okay, you need to invest all this time just to pick up this kind of trash. How easy is to dump it? How easy is to just throw it away, right?
Yeah.
But if you make conscience about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like for us, it's also making sustainable choices more accessible and more affordable. So from a brand standpoint, like we need to make sustainability accessible to everyone. So it needs to be in all your local supermarkets. It shouldn't just be, at your prestigious Whole Foods and things like that. Like everyone should be able to access sustainability, which is like our whole mission. So to overcome that challenge is like we need to have it at every storefront and things like that and different options for people so they can choose to be sustainable and not have to work extra to do that because people don't want to have the extra effort.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And going back to Nature B, your business is looking for sustainability, right? It's sustainability based. Now,
Yes.
how do you recommend, Katie, to engage other entrepreneurs to promote the implementation of sustainability practices in their own businesses?
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is like leading by example. So we demonstrate to people like sustainable habits and changes in their daily lives. But then when I talk to other business owners, it's like, how could they become more sustainable? Or, could they look at their manufacturers? Could they look at their partners and like ask those questions about it? And like, I don't know, we use social media, we use community events, we spread information that way. And then also just collaborating. Like we collaborate with different businesses all the time to bring more awareness. And it doesn't have to be everybody's sole focus to be sustainable, but what are they doing in their business to make sure that they're leading by example? And I think everyone now knows sustainability is so important. So like how are we doing that all together? And it's just yeah, it's a tough one, but I think a lot of businesses are definitely bringing their ideas and things like that together, and that's what's really motivating each other to like have those sustainable practices.
And in your experience, which actions that you implement today do you think can be transferred to other fields?
Yeah, so I mean, like a few things that have been like pretty cool for us is like we offer custom swag. And so, for example, a lot of companies will use pens or single use, you know, I don't even know, like chocolate bars with wrappers and like all these kind of things that are all single use. Like that's the whole world of swag and promotional items is that. And so what we've done is created products and swag that can be not single use, completely biodegradable at the end of their life. And we've seen such a huge uptake on that, like wine toppers for companies that are typically going to just put a cheap plastic thing on the top of their wine topper. They've come to us and they've now put beeswax wraps on their wine topper. So they're showing their values of sustainability. They're reducing like 40,000 different pieces of plastic going out. And so it's this cross industry application of sustainable practices that like inspire similar actions in others. So we're reducing plastic use in both like consumer goods and things like that, but then they're doing that in their industrial practices. So there's like so many ways to cross over and encourage others. And I think like that's one of the big ones. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And talking about your hopes and aspirations for integrating sustainability practices into daily living. How do you see what are your hopes?
My hope is just like widespread adoption of sustainable practices worldwide. Like, I want everybody to understand that they can put sustainability in their life without being completely bogged down and have this extra effort and things like that. And I think that it should be a widespread adoption and not an individual adoption. It has to start individually, but then it becomes widespread. So it's like a double take. But yeah, I think that like the communities will be healthier, our world will be healthier, our resource management will be healthier, our jobs will be healthier, if everybody just slowly integrates sustainable practices. And like, I won't preach that I'm perfect in my sustainable practices at all, but I do have all those small changes that I do in my daily routine that I know have a big impact. And if everybody's doing them, like that's billions of people, So, yeah, a widespread adoption of sustainable practices worldwide is my goal.
You mentioned before about the cost to implement sustainable practices might be a challenge or obstacles to be part of it. Now that you run a sustainably based business, would you say is that cost a huge problem to be sustainable?
It can be, and I know it's a barrier for people, but it's also the education around that. So people will say, "Oh, beeswax wraps are so expensive to start up," but if they're buying a $20 pack of beeswax wraps that's lasting them an entire year, not only is it like saving them with their plastic reduction and their cost of buying a whole new thing of plastic wrap every year, but they're preserving the life of their food, which also has an added cost. So it's these ripple down effect cost savings that people don't really realize are all integrated within each other. And so I think again our whole mission is to make it accessible to everyone. So that's price, that's education, that's community, all of those kind of things. So yeah, it goes beyond just like the cost of it because people don't realize the cost of sustainability is not just like money, it's like the health of our planet.
So in certain ways, like having a bigger view or wider view about the impact you're going to bring with that, right? Because just like you're saying, and you mentioned another thing that is really important, because food waste is another huge problem that we're not going to have the time today to talk about it. But yes, I mean, and if we talk about pollution,
Yes.
CO2 emissions, food waste is a huge contributor, and we need to do something about it. And I mean, just you mentioned with this with the product from Nature Bees, there is a solution, right,
Yep.
for that problem.
And what we really encourage is like small changes have big and long lasting impacts. So if you think about it, for the next 20 years of your life, if you never buy a new bottle, like that's hundreds of bottles from just one person that have been stopped from going in our landfill. So if you replicate that by your whole family, that's 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, and like the numbers just grow. So it's like don't look at it after just one use, look at it what the long term is, but remember that that small change you've made has a major impact in the long term.
Katie, thank you so much for that approach, that perspective that you shared today with us. We're just finishing the interview. I just have a last question to ask. Do you have
Yeah.
any suggestions or concerns about sustainability practices that we may have missed during the interview that you want to mention?
Doing research, educating yourself, and things like that are the most important. There's a lot of greenwashing out there and a lot of things that can happen. But again, if you feel good about what you're doing, that's all that really matters. So, yeah.
Dear Katie, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all the
Yeah.
experience you shared today. All this
Yeah.
information that you shared is giving us, I mean, the education, the awareness is giving us a clearer understanding of our impact in the environment and
Yeah.
how it's possible to do better,
Yeah.
to have a better world. Thank you
Amazing.
so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you just asking to involve me in this. So, thank you.